Before we begin, thank you very much to Jason L. for joining the Patreon campaign. Thank you very much for supporting the channel. Very appreciated. Helps out a lot. Thank you everyone who does so. I will keep making videos for as long as you guys keep supporting me because it's kind of how this whole thing works, really. But it is time for another Top 10 Tuesday, which means we are once again looking at a full year of the Transformers. And this is 1999, final year of Beast Wars. It's the year of Beast Wars Neo over in Japan. We have an eclectic mix because both sides of Transformers were doing somewhat experimental things with their toys. And I will be frank with you, a lot of me prefers some of the things Takara was doing over what Hasbro was doing. It also doesn't help that Hasbro released fewer toys compared to Takara that year. 1999 is surprisingly sparse on the Hasbro side. But nevertheless, we have plenty to talk about, so let us begin. These are the best Transformers of the year of 1999 in this humble reviewer's opinion, and we are going to start with an offering from Takara. As I said, they were doing some weird things with a whole theme of Destrons that were all dinosaurs versus dinosaurs and prehistoric animals, and Cybertrons that were all, like, basically whatever hasn't been done in Beast Wars to this point. So I'm going to start with Guile Dart. And I love this toy for a lot of reasons. Number one, plenty of color schemes available for it. So it's been repainted a lot over the years. I like the stocky, heavy look of it. It's kind of unique amongst Beast Wars in that, where his mass is kind of going outward instead of upward. It's kind of a cool look. I like the overall design. He kind of has this like mercenary vibe to him. But I also think there's clever use to the actual beast mode itself. For instance, the spikes in the bones coming off of the shoulder guard. Or yes, using the head as an arm. For a Triceratops, I think that actually works pretty well. What puts it over the top is, of course, the dead mode. So some of these brand new dinos from Takara had dead modes where they looked like their bodies were dead and decomposing. It's very much taking the Jurassic Park toy line's idea and expanding on it. And Guile Dart definitely had one of the better looking ones. He genuinely just kind of looks like a dead dino in the grass. It's such an odd gimmick, but it makes him such a unique figure. So good overall look, good overall toy, and then you throw in a fun little feature. Yeah, you make a place on the list. We will hop over to the Cybertrons now because, yeah, they had some eclectic choices. It was basically down to what animals haven't we done yet, which leads to some things that probably shouldn't be on the battlefield, but nevertheless make a fun toy. Case in point, Stampy. For such a little guy, there is so much character behind this. Number one, Bunny. Never thought I would see an actual transforming bunny, but here we are, and you know what? It didn't turn out too bad. Also, something that gets me is that a lot of Beast Wars Neo stuff tended to be very shell-reliant. We saw that with Guile Dart. It's extremely clean on Stampy, though. Despite the size, they managed to work a pretty interesting transformation in on him, and it turned out pretty good. Like most of the Maximals that year, he also had a weapon mode. Thanks to him being a basic class toy, he could actually fit in the hand of most of the larger toys and be used that way. But even then, the ears actually made for some interesting, like, scissor or arm blade weapons. So you actually had a little bit more play value to that too. I just think it's a fascinating toy. It's a cute Maximal. It's a cute Transformer, which we don't get very often, and it's very effectively done. I'm happy with him. So yeah, earns a spot on the list, if only because it stands out so much, and it's actually really well executed. Takara decided to challenge themselves with a beast mode that should not physically work, because there just isn't enough mass to make it into a robot. But Takara engineers are exceptionally clever, so they have figured out how to do it. Let us talk about Karada, or however you want to pronounce him, because he's one of those Transformer names where we seem to come up with a new variation of it every few years. But Karada is actually a really interesting figure. Number one, King Cobra. Okay, so good on ya. You figured out how to add enough mass to a snake mode in order to make a robot out of it, which I still think, despite that, is still something of an engineering miracle. Didn't have much choice but to use the length of the snake body to create a whip arm, which I'm perfectly okay with because they leaned into it. You know, they've got the poncho going, they've got the hat going. Like, he is designed to look like, you know, like an Old West outlaw. So they kind of played into the limitations of what they could work with and turned it into a really interesting and cool figure. You work in a little bit of a water squirting gimmick as well, so his beast mode can spray venom. You've got yourself a really fun and interesting figure. It's one of those figures where I'm shocked. Like, this should have been like an easy repaint and remold to get a lot of other uses out of, and we never saw it. TJOmega did a version that was a little bit shinier, but that was about it. Lost to time, I feel Karada is. It's just a really cool figure, you know, and it's a figure that shouldn't exist. But Takara knows black magic, so here we have a snake transformer, and it's a good one. I will admit, not many Transmetal 2s are in this list because I kind of find them a little bit lacking compared to the previous year's offerings. And I think Hasbro kind of lost the plot when it came to the details. The chrome from the Transmetal is cool, but you wash out so many of the cyborg details that really make these toys stand out, and I feel like it goes against the aesthetic that was originally designed for them. That said, there's a few that are just cool toys and figures regardless, and one of those is Prowl. Doesn't matter which one, the white version or the black version, they're still really, really good figures. I love how the toy looks overall. Like, I really like the look of the robot mode with the big chest and the crystal in the center. I like that. The wings over the shoulders, I like them better here because you can actually sweep them back. I didn't like it on Silverbolt because it just kind of stuck out all the way to the side, which got kind of annoying, especially if you needed to display him on a shelf. But that is not as much of a problem on Prowl. And then you get to the Beast mode, which is an owl. We've only got 2 of them. In 40 years, we've only gotten 2. So really good to have seen it in Beast Wars. But also, I just love the function of it. The head can move 360 degrees, like an owl. Well, not technically like an owl, but you get my point. And the wings can actually fold up like it's perched. So you get a little bit more functionality. You don't get the same old, like, I mean, it's stuck in, like, flight mode like you did for most bird transformers back then. Really well functioning. Did quite a bit for it. So, yeah, I really, really like this toy. This might be just a little bit bias of me to put it, you know, a little bit higher up on the list. I typically save, like, the pet favorite for number 10. But, no, I think this one genuinely deserves it. Why didn't we see more of him? Where is this Prowl? Among the myriad of them. I want another one, please. As we've established on this list, Takara was really good not only at figuring out animals that hadn't been used in Beast Wars yet, but also really good at using their unique characteristics to come up with things to make the toys themselves a lot more interesting. And Long Rack certainly proves that once again. You've got a pretty impressive figure here that is using a lot of the advantages of the giraffe mode to create a really cool looking figure. I do like how it uses its kibble. The hip skirts work for me, like the back, like the launchers on the back. That works for me. Interesting use of the long legs of the giraffe. It's got the weird tongue gimmick. It's got that worked in. And then, of course, the big feature of the whole toy is that long arm of his that extends out from the giraffe neck. I would stare at this normally and just wonder, like, what do you do with such a huge piece of bulk in order to convert it into a part of a robot? But lo and behold, they had a plan, and it works really, really well. That is a really cool gimmick to incorporate that Beast Wars in 3 years... You know, the 3 years prior to this hadn't done anything like that before. So it's cool to work in not only a new alt mode, but also a lot of variety. And giraffes are just fun animals. I mean, it's a really cool one to see. I don't even mind the weapon mode so much. It's as ridiculous as all the others, but at the least you got 2 missiles launching forward and you got that big claw, so he looks more like a utility mode. Like if you need a crane, he's there for you. Either way, really surprisingly good figure and just overall unique. That is a word that is going to be used very, very often in this list. Unique. Speaking of, Beast Wars Neo did me a favor of actually incorporating something that I think was sorely missing from Beast Wars, especially during the Fusor era, and that is a mythical creature. But it's Japan, so it's a mythical Japanese creature, and no surprise for who this one is. This is Heinrad. This one is amusing. This one is hilarious. So, okay, this one gets this high up on the list sheerly for how, like, characterful it is. So, for starters, working alarm clock, no less. You can actually use this, and apparently it keeps time pretty well from what I've heard. The Tanuki mode is accurately represented. It's got a sake bottle and a box of notes to trick people with. That's very much in character to the folklore. And yes, it has other details Tanukis are famous for that I will not mention in polite company. But suffice to say, fascinating figure. Fascinating figure. It feels like a weird mix of like those weird gimmicky toys that they would do that are kind of Transformers back in the 80s and the modern sensibilities of Beast Wars all kind of mixed into the same toy. It's a bizarre one. It's incredibly bizarre, but I think that earns it a very high place. What other Transformer can you use as an alarm clock? You know? It's only one that I'm aware of, so of course it's going to end up on the list. It helps that it's a cool and well-working, you know, toy as well. I guess I have to give it that along with it. So yeah, if you ever feel the need to wake up to a very shrill Transformer screaming in your ear in the morning, and then an urge to bop it on the head to get it to stop, this is the toy for you. It's time to talk about the big boys. So, if we're going to get into all the big characters from both Neo and Transmetal 2, then it's just a matter of what order they come in. So you might be surprised to find out that number 4 is going to be Transmetal 2 Megatron. This one is a really, really cool toy, and I love dragons. I absolutely love dragons. The fact that we only got, you know, like 1 or 2, depending on your definition of dragon in Beast War in G1, was a little bit painful, but this was gorgeous. This beautiful red dragon, very asymmetrical. Like, love the color scheme on it. I even like the translucent wings. Oh my god, you heard me say it. They looked cool. You know, it's just an ominous and menacing toy. It is very much a deserved upgrade for Megatron. I really wish Beast Wars has gotten more into these mythological animals. I mean, it really did feel like a wasted opportunity. The only reason he is not higher up on the list is because his, like, half-attempted dragster mode really could have been better. And I'm not a big fan of having the entire arm, this, like, rubbery gimmick just hanging off as, you know, like, I don't like the entire arm just being, like, the neck and the head of the dragon. Like, it works fine if it's just like the T-Rex head is just like his forearm, but the entire arm is a little much for me. Still, it is a very, very cool figure, fun to transform. I mean, it's a dragon. I'm gonna love a dragon no matter what you do to it. And yeah, this is a good one. Very worth being Megatron's final form. I know he turned into something else, we don't count that. This is final form. But if we have to talk about one of the big Transmetal 2s, that does mean we have to talk about his rival. And rather than mix things up, we might as well get it out of the way right now. Let's move on to Tigerhawk. So again, we are dealing with the Transmetal 2's asymmetry, which gives him this very heavy, wide-set appearance. You know me by now. I like a big, solid-looking robot. Tigerhawk definitely fits that. The wing pack absolutely helps as well. I like the color schemes with the off-white, the bright metallic blue, the hits of the neon green work for me. The beast mode, the winged tiger, I love it. As a fun mix of like Tigatron and Air Razor's aesthetics. It's a great look. It's an interesting transformation too, because it's as asymmetrical as the Transmetal 2 aesthetic is normally. You're going to top that off with them being also very heavily armed, which is also kind of cool for a Maximal toy. It just does a lot all around. This is another one. There was almost a third mode that almost had a tank mode, which you can kind of get him into too if you want to include that as, you know, another feature of the figure. Overall fun toy. Overall really fun toy. Admittedly, I kind of like his universe repaint better in the black and the purple, but we're not judging repaints. We're judging original molds, first releases only, and I still really like this one. It's still really cool. Glad he actually came out, because he almost didn't. We are heading back to Japan to finish off this list, so number 2, it's just going to be one of the leaders. You know it's going to be kind of how this works, because the leaders are always given the most attention. So, again, as with a lot of these lists, 2 and 1 is down to a personal preference, and my personal preference is to talk about Big Convoy here. Big Convoy would rank number 1 if he actually had a little bit less kibble to him. To their credit, Takara did everything they could to make a lot of his kibble do something. A big hunk of his beast mode becomes this massive cannon weapon. Okay, cool. Okay, I will let you get away with that. I'll even let you get away with the weapon mode because it actually kind of just looks like a proper assault mode for the beast. I'll give you the tusks hanging off the sides as these massive shoulder details, and the missile racks that are hidden inside. The hidden missile launchers in his leg kibble. Okay. The hidden guns at the bottom of the feet that hang off his hips. Okay. You've obviously done a lot. You've obviously done a lot to actually get this toy to do as much as possible. And then you're going to hide tonfas under his forearms, and you're going to give him the very first removable matrix of leadership a convoy ever had. That's really, really cool. And all wrapped up in a cool mammoth mode, too. I will give him credit. There's a lot of kibble on this toy. Almost enough to recreate the mammoth all by itself without involving the robot. And people have done that. But it does lead to him just having a ton of details, a ton of gimmicks. So he does have a lot going on for him. So it's an overall fun figure despite, just how much shell is hanging off of him. I prefer a cleaner bot, but you know what? If fun happens to involve the kibble, okay, I will accept that because fun is a priority. Big Convoy, a lot of fun. Oh, but what did I say about this year? Because this year's entire thing is about unique. The toys in 1999 were, if anything, unique. And if I'm going to name one toy overall as the absolute best of the year, it's got to be the most unique one of all, and that's Magmatron. Look at the image from TF Wiki I had to pull just to show off everything this thing could do. This is an absolutely absurd toy in and of itself. For starters, 3 beast modes. 3 beast modes that combine into one incredibly cool looking robot mode. I always really liked how Magmatron turned out. It's a very menacing look. It's an interesting and unique silhouette with the wings off the head. And yeah, you just get so much play value out of this thing. Like, you've got the launcher that also turns into the sword. You've got the shield made up of most of the, the sea sword that has like a pincer gimmick. You've got hidden missiles that double as extra swords. You've got the Magmasaur mode. Hello? Like, you're just gonna come up with this like crazy amalgamation of all these dinosaurs? It's a lot to do. It's a lot to mix into this toy. And it results in just a really overall impressive and feature-filled package. There is so much going on with this figure. And again, it all comes back to just, this is like nothing we had ever had before. It was one of a kind until they did the brand new one that's even better. So, my best toy of 1999, no surprise, it goes to Magmatron. Of course, when you're 3 toys in one, it's a little bit of stacking the deck, but it's a deserved win. And that is the best toys of 1999. So, we might be back in the weeds for a little bit here. We have to talk Beast Machines again. I know. I don't want to either. But that's just how this is going to go. You're all going to go in with me, so we'll get through it together. But until then, thank you everyone for watching. I will see you next time.